By 1791, Saint-Domingue produced nearly half of the world's sugar and coffee. It was the wealthiest colony in the Caribbean and operated under one of the most violent labor regimes in the Atlantic. Over 500,000 enslaved Africans worked plantations that generated unprecedented wealth for France and unimaginable brutality for those who produced it. Then, in August of that year, everything changed. This is what it was like to live through the Haitian Revolution. Saint-Domingue in the 1780s produced more wealth than any other colony in the Americas. Sugar, coffee, and indigo flowed to Europe in massive quantities. The population was divided into three groups: roughly 500,000 enslaved Africans, 40,000 white colonists, and 30,000 free people of color. Work on the plantations began before sunrise. Most people labored in the fields, while skilled workers, carpenters, blacksmiths, sugar refiners, operated inside the estates. Supervision was strict. Overseers tracked productivity, and punishments for resistance or slow work were severe. The slave codes, which governed daily life, left little room for autonomy. Free people of color occupied a complicated position. Some owned land and businesses. A few even owned enslaved workers themselves. But they faced legal restrictions and social discrimination that reminded them they were not equal to white colonists. For enslaved people, routine was shaped entirely by the plantation economy. Days were long, conditions were harsh, and the possibility of death from exhaustion, disease, or violence was constant. By the late 1780s, news from France began circulating through the colony. The French Revolution had introduced new ideas about rights and equality. These ideas reached Saint-Domingue through sailors, merchants, and returning colonists. Enslaved people discussed them quietly in the fields and during night gatherings. Information traveled quickly. Workers repeated what they heard from free people of color in the towns, or from those who had contact with maroon communities in the mountains. Underground networks formed slowly, passing messages about discontent and possibilities for action. In August 1791, a Vodou ceremony at Bois Caïman brought leaders together. Duddy Boukman, an enslaved driver and Vodou priest, called for coordinated resistance. The ceremony became a turning point, not because it was the only moment of planning, but because it symbolized a shift from individual acts of defiance to collective strategy. Families began preparing. Machetes and hoes, standard plantation tools, were sharpened and hidden. Weapons were improvised from iron bars and farming equipment. Intelligence about plantation layouts and patrol schedules was gathered and shared. Maroon communities in the mountains had established pathways through the interior that could move people and supplies without detection. These networks expanded as more people joined the resistance. On the night of August 22, 1791, coordinated attacks began across the northern plain. Plantations were set on fire. The night sky filled with smoke and light. Thousands of enslaved people left the estates and moved toward the mountains or into areas controlled by rebel forces. For those who joined the uprising, routines disappeared overnight. Makeshift camps formed in the hills and forests. Families gathered what food they could: cassava, plantains, dried fish. Wounded fighters were treated with herbal remedies. Vodou leaders provided spiritual guidance and helped organize groups. Security required constant vigilance. French militia patrols searched for rebel camps, and anyone caught faced execution. Communities moved frequently, staying ahead of colonial forces. Children learned to stay quiet during military operations. Women took on roles as cooks, nurses, and messengers, and some fought directly. For white colonists, panic set in quickly. Many fled to coastal towns or left the colony entirely. Those who remained fortified their properties and organized militia units. Free people of color faced difficult choices. Some sided with the colonial government, hoping to secure their own rights. Others supported the rebellion, seeing it as the only path to real equality. As the revolution expanded, the conflict became more organized. Toussaint Louverture emerged as a central military and political leader. He structured rebel forces into disciplined units and established training routines. What had started as scattered uprisings evolved into a sustained military campaign. Life in rebel-controlled areas revolved around the war effort. People shifted between roles: farmer, soldier, spy, courier, depending on need. Villages functioned as supply bases. Food production continued in areas that were relatively secure, but civilians had to be ready to move at any moment. Women played essential roles beyond the battlefield. They gathered intelligence, carried messages between units, and maintained supply lines. Some commanded troops. The revolution required contributions from everyone, and traditional gender roles became less rigid under the demands of survival. Communities relied on each other for protection, food, and information. Homes were temporary. Children grew up understanding that silence and quick movement could mean survival. Between 1793 and 1798, multiple European powers tried to control Saint-Domingue. British and Spanish forces invaded, each hoping to take advantage of the internal conflict. The colony became a battleground with shifting alliances and constant fighting. Disease killed more people than combat. Yellow fever spread rapidly, devastating European troops unfamiliar with the climate. Haitian forces, many of whom had built up resistance, used this to their advantage. Civilians made decisions based on survival rather than ideology. Regions like Le Cap in the Artibonite Valley switched control multiple times. People navigated a complicated reality where cooperation with one faction might offer temporary safety, even if their ultimate loyalty lay elsewhere. Basic resources became scarce. Food was rationed, clothing wore out and was patched together from whatever materials were available. Families who controlled small plots of land farmed during brief periods of relative peace. Salt and dried fish became valuable trade goods. Mothers protected children during bombardments. Communities developed early warning systems to alert each other when troops approached. Rainwater was collected and stored. Planning and adaptation defined every aspect of existence. In 1802, Napoleon sent a large military force to Saint-Domingue with orders to re-establish colonial control and reinstate slavery. The population understood what was at stake. Freedom had to be made permanent, or everything gained would be lost. The conflict intensified. French forces used brutal tactics, including mass executions and the use of dogs against captured fighters. In response, Haitian forces united under leaders like Jean-Jacques Dessalines and fought with renewed determination. Civilians continued supporting the military effort in whatever ways they could. Weapons were hidden and moved between locations. Food supplies were gathered and distributed. Information about French troop movements spread through established networks. French blockades made conditions difficult. Coastal towns faced shortages. Families endured relentless pressure, but the resolve to resist remained strong. People had experienced freedom, and they refused to return to the old system. On January 1st, 1804, Haiti declared independence. It became the first nation founded by formerly enslaved people and the first black republic in the world. The declaration marked the end of the most profitable slave colony in history and the success of the only large-scale slave revolt to achieve permanent freedom. Rebuilding began immediately. Destroyed plantations were divided into smaller farms. The plantation system, which had defined the colony's economy and social structure, was dismantled. Former slaves became landowners and citizens. Challenges remained. European nations and the United States refused to recognize Haiti diplomatically. Economic sanctions isolated the new republic. The trauma of war affected everyone. Infrastructure needed to be rebuilt. But there was also pride, an understanding that something unprecedented had been accomplished. Haiti forced the world to confront a reality it was not prepared to accept, that enslaved people could overthrow an empire and build a nation of their own. The revolution proved that no system of oppression, no matter how entrenched or profitable, was permanent. And for the people who lived through it, that knowledge changed everything. If you want to understand how ordinary people reshaped history, this is where it happened.